Okay, guys. So the first thing we're going to do, welcome to the TBI presentation, by the way. My name is Paul. I'm going to start you guys out with an activity. You guys are going to take a short true or false quiz on TBI, and I'm going to post a link to it in the chat in the breakout room. So give me 1 second here. Copy. Okay. Did you guys get that okay? Great. So just take a minute, take that short true or false quiz, and then just show me a thumbs up once you guys are all done and come on back.
Loom's working okay, Paul?
Yeah, I've got Loom working. Hopefully it saves okay once the video is over, but should be good.
Okay, awesome.
Thank you.
Up for like 5 minutes, okay?
Oh, great. How are you guys doing? Good, good. You guys all done?
Yes.
Great. How did that go? How did you guys do?
I think I got about half of them right.
Okay, so we're leaving some room for learning, which is always good. So I tried to share the link of the brochure in the chat, but it wouldn't work. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have this up here for you guys to track along with, and I'll go back to it. And then I will also be sure to email this brochure out to you guys because I have the PDF. I just can't get it in the chat. So we'll go back to the slides here, and we'll start with what is TBI. So in order for a brain injury to be classified as traumatic, the trauma must be the result of an external force. This could include the energy blast from an IED or being hit in the head by a hard object. TBI is most commonly the result of a fall or car accident. That is a key bit of information you guys will want to remember. Approximately 2% of the population lives with a disability that is associated with TBI. This comes out to about 1.7 million people living with TBI. As teachers, it is important that we are aware of this particular disability and the challenges it presents to learning, as brain injuries can disrupt the development of future skills in small children and can have very serious implications for neurocognitive and behavioral functioning. Children under the age of 4 and older adolescents are among those at the highest risk of traumatic brain injury. In other words, the demographics we serve as primary and secondary educators are among those who are most likely to have a traumatic brain injury. Next slide. Sorry, guys. I've got a lot of different tabs open right now, so thanks for bearing with me. Okay, this is just a little info chart for you guys, a list of possible symptoms and disabilities resulting from TBI. Some of the behavioral effects include personality changes, difficulties with emotional functions, poor self-control and emotional regulation, impairments in social cognition, judgment and reasoning difficulties, getting easily frustrated, high comorbidity. I didn't type this, sorry guys. Comorbidity with depression and anxiety and PTSD. Some of the neurocognitive symptoms and conditions include seizure disorders, aphasia, which is the inability to speak, write, or understand language, constructional dyspraxia, difficulties or impairment in tasks requiring complex attention, executive functions like memory, cognitive flexibility, or information processing speed. And then there's 5 different things that are sleep disorders, headaches, dizziness, vertigo, fatigue, and photosensitivity. So the brain is so important that TBI can really throw everything off. That's sort of the main underlying message with TBI. And then another thing I want to encourage with you guys, throughout the entire presentation, I have an entire list of information that I want to get to you guys, but I want to make sure that it's interactive and you guys are having fun and getting something out of this. Otherwise, you're not going to remember anything. So if you guys have any kind of comment or question, maybe one of you has had an experience with TBI or you know someone who's had an experience with TBI, I would love to hear about it. So if at any point in time one of these little slides jogs a memory or you have a comment, feel free to just interrupt and share. I would really appreciate that.
Okay, Paul, well, I'll go ahead and interrupt.
Oh, sweet. Taylor, go for it.
So my dad actually fell off a roof about 24 years ago.
Wow.
And experienced severe TBI.
Wow.
He has, like, really weird things happened with his injury. He lost all the hair follicles in his legs, so he doesn't grow hair on his legs anymore. He has no sense of smell or taste.
Wow.
He loses feeling on the complete left side of his body randomly. He gets severe migraines. He has a lot of behavioral issues now. He's severely bipolar. He has crazy outbursts and just of like complete rage. And like, I know I'm smiling, like this is not funny, but like, it's just something that I've lived with literally my entire life. So I know how it is. Like, I'm just used to it.
Sure.
But I've had friends over where he'll have an outburst and they're like, oh my God, like, is he gonna attack you or something? Like, it's just because he becomes so overly frustrated or something stimulates him and his brain cannot process what's going on. It's just like complete like rage, like crazy. So yeah, that's my experience with TBI. So
wow. Well,
yes.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Taylor. Mm-hmm. I don't know anybody with TBI, so I'm not sure what that would actually look like in real life. So
I don't want to take up a lot of time, but I was thinking, oh my goodness, I know someone with TBI. One of our students had the baby shaken syndrome, where she was born with no problems, and then her dad's girlfriend shook her when she was a baby. Now she has lost a lot on her left side. She has to wear a helmet because she has seizures and falls. We've actually seen her fall off a playground, and then the school made her wear a helmet for safety. And she cuts out words. She'll say, "What's your fave color?" She has a thing about, I know this is gross, but she has a thing about poop. And she likes to smear her poop places. And she knows it's wrong, but it doesn't stop her. And she gets mad and she gets sad and she goes through a lot of emotions, like Taylor was saying her dad does. So I didn't connect it at first, TBI, but yeah, it is TBI.
Wow. Thanks for sharing that, Sarah. So are you teaching right now, Sarah?
I'm an aide in the mod to severe.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, thank you guys for sharing. Keep if anything else comes up, feel free to interrupt me. So the next thing we'll talk about is some of the history with disability. And one of my main points in this presentation is the progression with disability rights is kind of tracked similarly to other groups of people. In particular, Black Americans, and using the military to advance civil rights and inclusion and justice is something that also happened with disability. So by and large, the evolution of language has kind of tracked how we've treated people with disability. And one of the first things on the slide here is Samuel Gridley Ho opens up a school for children with disabilities in Massachusetts. I didn't include the name of the school because some of the language was pretty defaming, and it was not people first, and it was pretty degrading. So as folks with disabilities have gotten more protections and rights, the language that we've used to describe them has changed. A pretty alarming statistic from 1921 to 1964, 63,000 individuals with disabilities were sterilized. And that's going to tie in a little bit to, I'm not going to talk too much about institutionalization and stuff like that, but there was a Supreme Court decision that really affected folks who were institutionalized and the services that they end up getting. So we'll move on to the next slide here. History of disability rights continued. So this basically is just getting at my main overall point with the advancement of disability rights tracking along other groups of people. But two of the biggest acts that have helped secure those rights are the Rehabilitation Act of 1973, which is the first big one. And then 2 years later was the All Handicapped Children Act of 1975, and that later became IDEA. Just the name of the act was changed in 1990. And then in 1990, they implemented the IEP into that framework. So here's sort of a timeline of some of the landmark legislation. In terms of legislation specific to TBI, there was a TBI Act of 1996, which established grants for states to help give services to people with TBI. It's not on here, but the very first sort of like legal legislation for folks with disabilities, I believe, was in 1963. And basically the standard was optional. So it was very like loose legislation that you could adopt or you couldn't. So it wasn't a law. So it didn't really secure any protections or rights. And then finally, the two landmark Supreme Court decisions. So Olmstead versus LC, this is kind of what I was talking about with the institutionalization. So before, in order to receive a service from an institution, you had to live there. And this was in 1999. So say I had TBI and I needed some specific service that only one institution offered. Unless I lived there, I couldn't get that service. So what this decision instituted was, no, you can live anywhere and still get that help. So that was a very big decision. And then the other one, which you guys, I'm sure, are very familiar with, is the Andrew F. versus Douglas County School District. And that centered around IDEA and sort of raising the standard of how students should be advancing through the curriculum. And the key word there was progress. Students should be making appropriate progress in light of their circumstances. Okay, so that's a little crash course in history. We'll move on now to instructional strategies to aid students with TBI. So, along with behavioral issues, students with TBI also present a variety of learning challenges, which must be addressed in the classroom. UDL kind of ties into everything, specifically, like with our reading, talking about speech disorders and language disorders. Very much everything applies with TBI as well. So you want to be outlining some of these strategies in your UDL. You guys already know this, but under the multiple means section, these are the exact things you'd want to talk about. And another thing to remember is just because you don't have a student with TBI, these strategies can benefit everybody in the class. So don't think, oh, I don't have a student with TBI, I don't necessarily need to use it. They're still super effective. So keeping instructions brief and uncomplicated, provide instructions in a couple different ways, sequence them appropriately, and then using different methods of how you express that information. So me right now, if I was just talking to you guys, it wouldn't be enough. So we've got our presentation here. You guys are going to get the brochure to kind of go over later and refamiliarize yourselves with all this information. So having those different means is very important. Some of the challenges related specifically to attention and concentration are reducing distractions in the student's work area, divide work into more manageable chunks, chunking, or cue the student to pay attention to key information. So our professor does a good job of using like different fonts and colors to kind of direct our eyes to certain places of like what we should be focusing on. And this is a perfect example of that. Just sort of giving people subtitles that are highlighted just so you can organize information in your head much more clearly. Is a great strategy for TBI. Some of the challenges related to memory, frequently repeat and summarize information, provide aids for remembering tasks, teach students to categorize and chunk information, and then linking new information to prior experience. And that's, I think most of you guys were in Dr. Posey's class with our learning theory, and that was like half the class, was just connecting the new information to past experiences. Like half the theories we learned about were that. And then difficulties with writing mechanics. Oops. So encouraging the use of spell check and grammar assistive devices, stress organization and ideas rather than mechanics. So just hammering home the big points and not worrying about the minutia. That's what any good teacher should be doing, but especially with students with TBI to make it easier to remember. And then encouraging the use of assistive technologies, and then reducing anxiety. So taking away time limits, not imposing any kind of restrictions, so long as the class can still function well, are definitely helpful in reducing anxiety. And then the last thing we're going to talk about are some transition planning issues for students with TBI, and then some of the resources that are available for people with TBI. So challenges for educators. Teacher preparation programs do not provide much training for students with TBI, even in special education programs. So it can be a real challenge. Students are not productively engaged in high school due to TBI, often remain unsupported in both higher education and community settings. So that's why if a student graduates from high school and those supports aren't in place, it can really make the transition period much more difficult. So having support groups, some kind of in-home assistance, respite care, and just having the support of family and friends, creating a network can really make a big difference. And that kind of starts at the school. It also starts at home, but especially at the school. So what school districts can do to prepare students after high school? Include practical skill training, interagency collaboration, family involvement in the transition planning process can help mitigate those challenges, provide community-based instruction, teach self-management strategies to help students with initiation problems, and then building self-awareness and being able to be your own advocate is another big thing. And then these are some available programs. These are all in the brochure, so I'm not going to read every one, but these are all going to be in the brochure you guys receive. And then a couple more. And then now it's our favorite time. We get to see how much you guys learned. So we have 10 multiple choice questions. If I can copy this link, then I will post it in our chat and then give you guys about 5 minutes to take the quiz, and then you guys can just say something once you're all done. I am gonna stop sharing my screen now, by the way, so I can see all you guys. I'll go to chat. And there it is. So that's the link to the multiple choice questions. Don't have too much anxiety. This won't count towards your guys' grade. You guys all done? Nice. How was it? How'd you guys do? Aced it?
Got a 7.
7? Okay. That's okay, Matt.
1. Yeah.
Okay. So what's one thing you guys got out of this presentation? Let's start with Colleen. What's one thing you got out of this? Can you hear me, Colleen?
I can kind of hear you. Sorry, my Zoom doesn't work very well.
Sorry.
Just that, it's okay. Just, all the symptoms of TBI, I wasn't that familiar with it either. I've met one person with
the TBI before.
Uh-huh.
So I went to high school with someone that had one, kind of. Well, he got injured when he was in high school, and then he got hit by a car. And then he just never really left the high school. Like, he would just hang out around the school, and he still does to this day. And I graduated in 2013.
Wow.
So it's pretty sad. Yeah. He's really nice, though. Well, yeah. And then I didn't realize the sterilization of people with TBIs.
Yeah, I didn't know about that either. How about you, Matt? What's one thing you're going to take away from this?
Well, to me, it just kind of seems that, people with a traumatic brain injury are just like others with a disability, in that just the sole fact that they have a disability, and that each person with that disability has certain problems that are unique to them. So you have to cater to them specifically, but a good place to start for any teacher is just to research the disability and find easy ways to help them. But most of all, just talk to their parents and get in touch with special education, and then make those relationships and help the student.
Definitely. And then Taylor and Sarah, you guys already shared. So unless you have anything else to add, we will end it there. Thank you guys so much for listening, and I will see you back in our class. Thank you, guys.
Mm-hmm.
Welcome back.